How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie is not merely a self-help book. It is a lifeline thrown to those drowning in the invisible storm of anxiety. Carnegie speaks directly to the ordinary individual who wakes up with a heavy chest, who fears tomorrow before it arrives, and who tries to sleep while his mind refuses to switch off. This book does not offer abstract philosophy or distant motivational slogans. It offers something far more human, real stories of people who collapsed under the weight of fear, uncertainty, financial pressure, social expectations, and emotional breakdowns, yet learned, step by step, to reclaim their peace. Carnegie's core idea is disarmingly clear. Worry does not solve problems. It consumes the very energy required to face them. Anxiety is not a passing cloud. It is a drain that steals your presence, ruins your ability to think, and exhausts your capacity to live. Throughout the book, Carnegie guides us not toward forced positivity, but toward practical, steady inner discipline. How to stop replaying past failures, how to survive the unknown future without terror, how to act without overthinking every possible catastrophe, how to rest even in the middle of unfinished business. This is a book about learning to breathe again, about reducing the volume of that inner voice that predicts danger at every turn, about training the heart to remain calm even when the world shakes. Carnegie's wisdom rests on lived experiences, not theories. From business leaders who faced bankruptcy, to soldiers broken by combat, to parents suffocating under responsibility, to everyday workers haunted by deadlines, each story reveals that peace is not granted but built, one thought at a time, one habit at a time. This summary will take you through the essential tools Carnegie taught: how to break the cycle of anxious thinking, how to live in day-tight compartments, how to stop trying to control what cannot be controlled, and how to re-enter your life with clarity, confidence, and emotional steadiness. So, as we step into the following chapters, let this not just be an intellectual exercise, but a small act of personal liberation, a quiet reminder that you are allowed to live more lightly, more presently, more kindly with yourself. If this journey resonates with you, remember to support the channel with a like and subscribe to Read and Rise so you never miss a profound and life-shaping book experience. Chapter 1. Living in Day-Tight Compartments. Dale Carnegie opens the first chapter with a principle so simple yet so transformative that it can reshape one's emotional life entirely. Live in day-tight compartments. What does it mean? Carnegie invites us to imagine the human mind like the watertight compartments of a large ship. When one section floods, the doors close to prevent the entire vessel from sinking. Likewise, he argues, life becomes unbearable not because of the weight of today, but because we allow the anxieties of yesterday and the terrors of tomorrow to pour into the present moment all at once. Humans suffer not due to reality as it stands, but due to memory and imagination, two magnificent tools that turn into monsters when left unchecked. We replay conversations that have already ended. We anticipate tragedies that have not yet occurred. We live the pain twice, once in fear, once in fact. Carnegie's voice is steady throughout. You owe nothing to yesterday except a lesson, and nothing to tomorrow except preparation, but both are powerless compared to the now. To live in a day-tight compartment means that if your mind tries to wander into regret, you gently pull it back. If it rushes into catastrophic future thinking, you anchor it, not with force, but with calm repetition. It is a psychological boundary, one that protects the nervous system from overload and restores the ability to think rationally instead of emotionally collapsing. In Carnegie's world, the present moment is not a poetic idea, but a survival method. Most breakdowns happen not from a single blow, but from accumulated, unchecked thoughts. Even the strongest souls topple when they carry time on their shoulders in every direction at once. So the first chapter is a reorientation of consciousness. Stop living all your years in a single moment. Leave yesterday where it lies. Let tomorrow arrive at its own pace. And give today the dignity of your full attention. With that principle settled like a foundation stone, Carnegie prepares the reader for the next essential truth. Acting solves anxiety more than thinking. Thought can paralyze, but action liberates. In the next chapter, he turns to the machinery of worry itself, how it forms, why it multiplies, and how to dismantle it before it dismantles you. The real question becomes not simply how to live without fear, but how to move through fear without surrendering your life to it. Chapter 2: The Formula for Facing Worry. Carnegie steps deeper into the anatomy of anxiety, not as a vague emotional disturbance, but as a predictable mechanism that can be dismantled with method, not magic. He presents a formula, simple, almost brutally logical, designed to break worry's hold before it matures into paralysis. The formula consists of 3 disciplined steps. Analyze the worst possible outcome, accept it if you must as a reality you can endure, then improve upon that outcome with calm intention. Carnegie is clear: the mind fears what it refuses to define. Ambiguous dread is always sharper than confirmed difficulty. The moment you name the worst-case scenario, it loses its monstrous proportions. It no longer haunts you from the shadows. It sits across from you, known, measurable, finite. Those who have endured crises, soldiers before battle, surgeons before a risky operation, investors on the brink of collapse, often speak of an unexpected serenity once the worst is acknowledged. When you accept that life might indeed break, something inside shifts. You stop resisting fear and begin working with clarity. Acceptance, in Carnegie's view, is not surrender. It is displacement. It moves the mind out of panic and into strategy. Only then can the third step begin: improvement. No longer suffocated by anxiety, you can focus on what is possible rather than what is dreadful. Perhaps the loss can be minimized. Perhaps the mistake can be corrected. Perhaps the relationship can heal. Perhaps the business can adapt. The emotional tide turns. Before acceptance, everything feels like collapse. After acceptance, everything feels like logistics. Carnegie fills the chapter with stories of men and women who clawed their way back from the edge. A bankrupt merchant who rediscovered solvency, not by hoping, but by calculating. An executive who avoided a nervous breakdown by embracing the possibility of dismissal, then negotiating from a place of steadiness rather than desperation. A young woman who faced heartbreak not through denial, but by admitting that love may indeed end, and still choosing to live with dignity rather than drowning in what-ifs. Carnegie insists on a subtle truth. Worry thrives in the unknown. The moment a person says, "If the worst happens, I will still remain," the spell breaks. This chapter is not about optimism, it is about emotional realism. Optimism demands hope. Realism demands courage. Courage is quieter. It does not shout. It sits, breathes, and says, "Even if I lose, I will not lose myself." With this mental discipline in place, Carnegie transitions toward the next challenge. The mind does not only fear the catastrophic, but also obsesses over the trivial. Much of anxiety is not born from tragedy, but from accumulated small irritations, social frictions, misunderstandings, and imagined judgments. Thus, the book turns next toward a different battlefield, not the battlefield of disaster, but the battlefield of daily mental noise. When we continue, Carnegie will teach us how to dissolve the constant background hum of minor worry, the kind that steals the joy of ordinary days and corrodes inner calm drop by drop. We proceed to unlock the psychology of fear, not to escape it, but to walk through it with mastery rather than trembling. Chapter 3: The Weight of Trifles. Carnegie shifts from catastrophic fear to the subtler, more insidious type of anxiety, the kind that does not roar, but whispers. The daily irritations, the passing criticisms, the imagined judgments, the unfinished tasks, the little misunderstandings that multiply until the nervous system is quietly overwhelmed. He insists that people do not break solely from grand crises, but from the relentless accumulation of trivial mental burdens. In this chapter, worry becomes granular. Not war, not bankruptcy, not heartbreak, but the comment your colleague made without thinking, the email you haven't answered, the bill not yet paid, the memory of a mistake replayed for the 10th time. These are the small stones that Carnegie exposes. The small stones that one by one fill the pockets until a person no longer can walk. He offers a striking observation. Humans overestimate the emotional significance of tiny events because the mind prefers stimulation over stillness. Worry feeds on the smallest hooks. It does not need catastrophe to survive. A raised eyebrow, a delayed reply, an awkward silence can be enough to disturb sleep if left unexamined. Carnegie urges the reader to adjust perception, not circumstance. Life will not minimize its interruptions. You must minimize your reaction to them. He tells stories of individuals who nearly collapsed, not from massive losses, but from internal pressure built over months of giving every detail the gravity of a disaster. A manager who lost composure over office gossip. A teacher who exhausted herself trying to please every opinion. A father whose quiet resentment grew from household frictions too small to name aloud. Carnegie's advice becomes both compassionate and stern. Learn to let go, systematically, consciously, deliberately. If you must respond, respond. If you must adjust, adjust. But if a matter is beneath the dignity of your nervous system, do not grant it more power than it deserves. He likens worry to sand in machinery. One grain changes nothing, but accumulated grains can stop the engine. The chapter pushes the reader toward emotional prioritization. Not every thought deserves a tribunal. Not every discomfort deserves analysis. Not every comment must be dissected for hidden meaning. Much of life is accidental, unintentional, passing. And inner peace demands that we allow it to pass. Carnegie's prescription is simple, yet requires discipline. Ignore with maturity, not out of arrogance, but out of self-preservation. As the chapter closes, he reminds us that true calm is not the absence of noise, but the refusal to amplify it. The soul breaks not from storms, but from persistent drizzle that never ends because the mind never grants itself shelter. With the trifles exposed, Carnegie prepares the reader for a deeper confrontation: how to handle criticism, not just misplaced worry, but direct psychological assault; how to endure blame, misunderstanding, insult, and judgment without internal collapse. Next, we move from invisible irritations to the public arena, where others' voices, sharp, loud, insistent, can harm the most delicate parts of the psyche, if not understood and neutralized. We continue into the chapter where the fear of other eyes becomes the heaviest chain around one's inner freedom. Chapter 4: The Poison of Criticism. Carnegie steps directly into one of the oldest emotional wounds humans carry: the fear of being judged. If the trifles of daily life chip at the nerves slowly, criticism strikes like a blade, swift, memorable, echoing long after the words fade. He begins with an unflattering truth. Most criticism has little to do with you. It tells you far more about the critic than the criticized. People condemn what threatens them, envy what surpasses them, and mock what they secretly want but cannot reach. Carnegie argues that criticism is rarely neutral. It carries invisible baggage: frustration, insecurity, rivalry, dissatisfaction. Criticism ruins peace only when we treat it as an objective verdict rather than a psychological signal. A person speaks from their own biography, not yours. The comment is shaped by their disappointments, their upbringing, their fears, their ambitions. He offers an antidote that is deceptively simple. Do not swallow words whole. Examine them, dissect them. Ask, is there truth here or noise? If truth exists, even a fragment, take it without resentment and use it to grow. Improvement is victory, not surrender. A mind that can accept correction without collapse is a mind immune to manipulation. If there is no truth in the criticism, Carnegie advises a different posture. Let it fall. Do not record it. Do not replay it. Do not translate it into self-doubt. A false judgment is a gust of wind. Only by chasing it does one become tired. He shares anecdotes of towering figures: Lincoln, Roosevelt, Nobel, Edison, each targeted, insulted, caricatured. Their lesson is identical. Greatness demands exposure, and exposure invites attack. To dream publicly is to be misunderstood publicly. Criticism, then, becomes a price of participation rather than a sign of failure. To avoid judgment, one must avoid action, and that is a far greater failure. Carnegie also warns against internalizing praise to the point of dependency. A person who lives on approval becomes as controlled as one who lives in fear of disapproval. Freedom lies in balance: to listen without kneeling, to evaluate without self-punishment. The chapter closes not with defiance, but with composure. Criticism will come, unasked, unearned, sometimes unhinged. The task is not to silence the world, but to anchor the self. A calm mind can hold a stormy opinion without sinking. Carnegie's trajectory now becomes clearer. He has dismantled worry's shadows one by one: the imagined catastrophe, the daily friction, the hostile gaze. Next, he moves from psychological reactions to practical living. How to build habits of thought that do not merely reduce anxiety, but replace it with vitality. Work, purpose, service, engagement. He turns from survival to meaning, hinting at a life not merely free of fear, but rich with action and connection. Ahead lies the question: if worry does not control your days, what will? Chapter 5. Break the worry habit before it breaks you. In this chapter, Carnegie emphasizes the importance of taking active steps to prevent worry from dominating your life. He argues that worry is not merely an emotional burden, but a habit that can be broken with conscious effort. The chapter begins with practical advice. Analyze your worries carefully, separate the real problems from imagined ones, and then tackle the actionable aspects systematically. Carnegie introduces the technique of writing down each worry, determining what can be done about it, and taking immediate action on those things you can control. For the worries that cannot be solved immediately, he advises mental discipline. Accept them, let them go temporarily, and focus on what is possible. He illustrates this method with real-life examples of people who transformed their lives by applying these principles, showing that clarity and decisiveness are antidotes to anxiety. The chapter also discusses the dangers of dwelling on the past or anticipating the worst-case scenario. Carnegie warns that overthinking often amplifies worry unnecessarily, turning minor setbacks into sources of prolonged stress. Instead, he advocates for maintaining a practical and present-focused mindset, concentrating on constructive actions rather than hypothetical problems. Carnegie introduces the principle of living in day-tight compartments, which means dealing with today's issues today without being burdened by the past or overwhelmed by the future. By breaking life into manageable segments, worry loses its power, and individuals regain a sense of control and purpose. This approach fosters mental clarity, reduces stress, and encourages productive decision-making. Finally, the chapter emphasizes the importance of cultivating a positive attitude and gratitude, even amidst challenges. By focusing on opportunities, achievements, and what is going well, individuals can counterbalance negative thought patterns and create a more optimistic mental environment. Carnegie's examples demonstrate that breaking the worry habit is not a one-time effort, but a continuous practice that empowers individuals to live with greater peace and effectiveness. Chapter 6. How to Analyze and Solve Worry Problems. In this chapter, Carnegie provides a systematic approach to tackling worry. He emphasizes that most worries stem from uncertainty and lack of clarity, and by analyzing them carefully, individuals can regain control and reduce anxiety. The process begins by writing down the problem, ensuring that the worry is clearly defined rather than vague or generalized. Carnegie introduces a three-step formula for problem solving. 1. Ask yourself, what is the worst that can happen? By confronting the worst-case scenario, individuals can prepare mentally and emotionally, reducing fear of the unknown. 2. Accept the worst and be mentally ready to endure it. Acceptance diminishes the power of worry because it removes resistance and the illusion that anxiety can prevent negative outcomes. 3. Take constructive steps to improve the situation. After acceptance, Individuals can focus on actionable measures to mitigate or resolve the problem. This transforms worry into purposeful action, replacing helplessness with productivity. The chapter also highlights the importance of breaking problems into smaller, manageable parts. Large, overwhelming issues often trigger chronic worry. By tackling each component methodically, a sense of progress and control emerges. Carnegie illustrates this with examples of business executives, professionals, and ordinary individuals who overcame persistent anxiety by applying this approach. Furthermore, Carnegie discusses the mental discipline required to prevent recurring worries. He stresses that reflection alone is insufficient. Action must follow. This process also involves letting go of issues beyond one's control, recognizing that excessive concern over uncontrollable factors wastes energy and generates unnecessary stress. By the end of the chapter, readers understand that worry is not an escapable condition. Through structured analysis, acceptance, and decisive action, individuals can transform anxiety into clarity and confidence. Carnegie's message is clear. Worry loses its power when it is confronted systematically and met with practical solutions. Chapter 7. Cultivate a mental attitude that will bring you peace and happiness. In this chapter, Carnegie emphasizes the power of mindset in overcoming worry and achieving lasting peace. He argues that worry often stems not from external circumstances, but from how individuals perceive and respond to them. By cultivating a constructive mental attitude, one can drastically reduce anxiety and enhance overall well-being. Carnegie advises readers to focus on the positive aspects of every situation and to train the mind to notice opportunities rather than obstacles. He illustrates this with examples of people who consciously shifted their perspective from despair to hope, turning challenges into avenues for growth. The practice of gratitude, regularly acknowledging what one has rather than dwelling on what is lacking, is highlighted as a key tool for fostering mental tranquility. The chapter also introduces the concept of filling your mind with thoughts of peace, courage, health, and hope. Carnegie explains that the mind tends to dwell on what it is fed. By intentionally focusing on constructive and uplifting thoughts, individuals can weaken negative patterns of worry and strengthen resilience against stress. Carnegie emphasizes the role of service and helping others in reducing personal anxiety. Engaging in meaningful work or acts of kindness redirects attention away from self-centered worry and fosters a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Additionally, maintaining balance through rest, recreation, and healthy habits supports a positive mental state, creating a strong foundation for emotional stability. Ultimately, Carnegie asserts that a disciplined, optimistic mindset is a powerful antidote to worry. Peace and happiness are not accidental. They are cultivated through conscious choices in thought, perspective, and action. This chapter leaves readers with practical guidance for reshaping mental habits, encouraging them to actively direct their minds toward constructive and life-affirming patterns. Chapter 8. Fill your mind with thoughts of peace, courage, health, and hope. In this chapter, Carnegie delves deeper into the practice of consciously directing one's thoughts to foster mental serenity and resilience. He argues that the human mind, if left unchecked, naturally drifts toward worry, fear, and negativity. However, by deliberately focusing on uplifting and constructive thoughts, individuals can replace anxiety with confidence and peace. Carnegie provides concrete strategies for cultivating this mental habit. One key approach is positive visualization. imagining successful outcomes, healthy relationships, and productive solutions to problems. By repeatedly envisioning positive scenarios, the mind begins to accept them as possibilities, which strengthens resolve and reduces stress over potential setbacks. The chapter also emphasizes the importance of mental discipline and repetition. Just as physical exercise strengthens the body, repeated practice of positive thinking fortifies the mind against worry. Carnegie encourages readers to start the day with affirmations, reflections on past successes, and deliberate focus on gratitude, creating a mindset that naturally resists negative influences throughout the day. Carnegie illustrates these principles with examples from his own life and from readers who applied these techniques to overcome fear, anxiety, and persistent worry. Simple practices such as keeping a journal of positive events, recalling moments of courage, and acknowledging daily blessings become tools for reinforcing mental strength and emotional balance. Finally, Carnegie emphasizes the connection between thoughts and actions. A mind filled with peace, hope, and courage does not merely feel better, it acts better. Individuals become more decisive, empathetic, and resilient, capable of handling challenges without being consumed by worry. The chapter concludes with the clear message that peace of mind is not a passive state, but an actively cultivated habit, achievable through persistent attention and constructive thought. Chapter 9. The Golden Rule for Conquering Worry. In this chapter, Carnegie introduces what he calls the golden rule for managing worry, emphasizing that the way to achieve a worry-free life is to focus on others rather than being consumed by oneself. He argues that self-centered anxiety often magnifies problems, whereas shifting attention to helping and serving others creates perspective and reduces personal stress. Carnegie provides numerous examples of individuals who overcame persistent worry by engaging in acts of kindness, community service, or meaningful work. These actions not only distract from self-focused anxiety, but also instill a sense of purpose, satisfaction, and connection, powerful antidotes to fear and negativity. The chapter also explores the importance of maintaining a clear moral conscience. Carnegie emphasizes that integrity, honesty, and fairness in dealings reduce internal conflict, which is a major contributor to worry. When actions align with values, the mind is free from guilt, regret, and self-recrimination, leaving more energy for constructive thinking. Carnegie stresses the need for practical action in conjunction with reflection. He advocates setting goals, prioritizing tasks, and addressing problems directly, rather than postponing or overthinking them. This approach transforms worry into purposeful action, empowering individuals to feel in control rather than helpless. Finally, the chapter reinforces the principle of living in the present moment. Excessive concern over the past or future fuels anxiety, but by focusing on what can be done today, individuals create tangible results and gradually diminish the power of worry. Carnegie's examples show that a life oriented toward meaningful action, ethical conduct, and service to others is naturally less burdened by unnecessary fear or anxiety. Chapter 10. Don't worry about criticism. In this chapter, Carnegie focuses on one of the most common sources of worry, fear of criticism and judgment from others. He begins by noting that criticism is often inevitable, especially for those who take action, lead, or pursue personal growth. Worrying excessively about what others think not only paralyzes decision-making, but also drains mental energy that could be used for productive endeavors. Carnegie offers practical guidance on how to respond to criticism constructively. First, he advises listening objectively, separating valid feedback from baseless attacks. By discerning the difference, individuals can learn and improve without becoming overwhelmed by negative emotions. Criticism, when handled wisely, can serve as a tool for personal and professional growth rather than a source of anxiety. The chapter also explores the importance of maintaining self-confidence and inner values. Carnegie emphasizes that individuals who are clear about their principles, skills, and goals are less susceptible to the destabilizing effects of negative opinions. By anchoring self-worth internally rather than externally, one can face criticism with composure and resilience. Carnegie provides numerous examples of people who overcame fear of judgment by embracing their work and decisions confidently, regardless of others' reactions. He underscores that most criticism is transient and often reflects more about the critic than the target, and therefore internalizing it unnecessarily only fuels worry. Finally, the chapter introduces the principle of action as the antidote to fear. Instead of overanalyzing potential judgment or hesitating out of concern for criticism, Carnegie urges readers to take decisive steps forward. He reinforces that progress, experience, and achievement are far more effective in building confidence and reducing worry than attempting to appease every opinion or avoid disapproval. Conclusion: living a life free from worry. In conclusion, Carnegie reinforces the central theme of the book. Worry is not an unavoidable part of life. It is a habit that can be managed and minimized through conscious thought, practical action, and mental discipline. He reminds readers that anxiety often arises from focusing on uncertainties, dwelling on the past, or fearing future events that may never occur. By adopting structured strategies, individuals can transform worry into constructive action and clarity. Throughout the book, Dr. Carnegie has provided practical tools, analyzing problems methodically, focusing on what can be controlled, accepting the worst-case scenario, living in day-tight compartments, cultivating a positive mental attitude, filling the mind with constructive thoughts, and overcoming fear of criticism. These techniques collectively empower readers to regain control over their thoughts and emotions, creating a more balanced and fulfilling life. Carnegie also emphasizes that peace of mind is an ongoing practice, not a one-time achievement. Consistency, self-awareness, and deliberate focus on positive action are essential. By embracing these principles, individuals can reduce stress, improve decision-making, and experience greater satisfaction in daily life. If you found this summary helpful, hit the like button, subscribe to Read and Rise, and turn on notifications to explore more life-changing books that teach practical strategies for personal growth, mental clarity, and overcoming worry.